Hello everyone, my name is Saf. You are watching Grey on Tech TV, and if you have not done yet so do hit that subscribe button and like the video so that it reaches many learners who are new to Appian. Today in this session, we will be continuing on UI UX development series for Appian. And as discussed, we have already seen different type of layouts, we have seen different type of buttons, we have seen different type of individual components that are required as a input component in my previous session, right? Now we will be focusing on more advanced patterns that we will be using in our interface design for designing more complex screens and dashboards. So we'll be starting randomly. So let's talk about milestones first, because milestones is something that everybody has to face when they are designing something with respect to moving of inline interfaces and data. Let's talk about the milestone. I'll find milestone event. First thing, let us clear the previous code. Going back to design mode, let's find milestone. I'm trying to simplify the design by going on with the least and least level of simple implementations of milestones. Let's move ahead. Let's drag and drop the milestone and understand the code of how a milestone, right? As you can see that I have used milestone bar. That means these are the bars, right? And we'll be going to the expression mode to understand how a milestone. So as we can see that there is a local variable definition here, and then that's the exact implementation of pattern. Let's see what is the definition of local variables. First, we have local bank milestone bar steps, that is defining the list of the labels of the milestones that are defined in the order. And second, it is defining the current milestone bar step. Uh, Just to play around the code, if you see that it is defined as 2 as the current milestone, if I make it as 1, then what will happen? If I make it as 1, then the milestone will be starting initially, correct? Now let's move on to the next piece of code explanation. If you collapse this A bank for each, you'll be able to see that the code is quite simple to understand. If we collapse this also and the rest of the other part, you'll be able to understand that the bottom part that you see here, it is coming from a button array layout, right? Now this button array layout is already explained in the previous session. If you don't know what is the button array layout and the difference between button layout and button array layout, check out my previously uploaded video. Here you can see in the columns layout, this is the first button array layout and this is the second button array layout, and these are wrapped inside a two columns layout, correct? If we collapse it again, we'll be able to see that this is the button code, correct? I'll simplify this for you. This is the button code. I've added the comment. Now there's a choose function. Now let's understand the documentation of choose. If you see that it returns the result of evaluating the parameter indicated by the index. Means if you have a particular key, right, that is current milestone bar step for us currently. It can be a local variable, it can be a fixed value, or it can be anything. Based upon whatever the value is, the list will be chosen. The list item will be chosen. For example, if I collapse the first item, second item, third item, fourth item. So choose is quite simple to understand. If you apply a local variable with a set value, that is 1. So if the value is 1, definitely the key has to be an integer. So it expects a value as an integer. If the value is 1, so the first choice will be rendered. If the value is 2, the second choice will be rendered. If the value is 3, the third choice will be rendered. And if the value is 4 and the fourth choice will be rendered, and so on. With this implementation, we understood that depending upon the local bank current milestone bar step, the code of the inside of the milestone content, the body will be rendered accordingly. Correct? Now, if you see line number 169, if we expand this, it says that replace this rich text with the component or rule that should populate at this step. In simple terms, it means that when you want this stage to appear on the screen, definitely you want the body pertaining to this stage. So you have to replace the code here for the first choice, that is current milestone bar step. So in your real world example, whatever you are doing in the project or in the code, you have to pass a rule bank interface, that is a child interface, or you can directly put the code if you are having a smaller code in the interface. Generally, what developers do, they pass a child interface here. Now, why there is a curly brace? There is a curly brace because it can have more than one item in the, you know, it can have more than one component in the code. That is why it is a list by default. If you are calling a rule bang interface, definitely you don't need to wrap it inside a list. That is a curly brace, right? Just like we understood that if you choose the first item in through the local variable, so the contents of the first time will belong here, right? Just instead of this, if I do crayon tech, right? And in the second, if I do don't forget to subscribe, and if in the third I do keep learning, and in the fourth, if I do keep growing, so we'll understand that because the local variable is one, so the first piece of code is rendered in the choose function, correct? If I do it as three, then what will happen? So because the local variable is three, so the third item is chosen by the choose function. The third item of the list is this one, keep learning. So with this, we understood that choose function is essential while creating a scenario of milestone. Now, I hope you understood that you can put up your own code and based upon your current milestone step, it will be working. Now the whole crux of milestone works on the basis of local bank current milestone bar step or whatever the key you are having. It can be the defined code, the defined variable in the pattern, or you can have your own key with your own name. Now the thing is, this choose function functionality we understood. Okay, this is for the body. Now what about the parent, you know, headers of the milestone? How do they work and how can we manipulate them for our own implementation of code? This is quite simple. Now let's comment this out. This is body or child interface, correct? So if we are having a complex pattern, we can break them into different pieces and we can understand each and everything depending upon our understanding of functions. The more rich you are with understanding of functions, the more easy for you it will be for you to understand the whole pattern provided by Appian in uh, you know the palette. Now the next thing, coming to the top section of the milestone, these are the pieces of how the milestones are getting incremented. So if we see that there is a columns layout which is iterating the columns based upon the local variable defined on the local bank milestone bar steps. So if you see that a bank for each, so for each local bank milestone bar steps, we are doing some implementation which we'll see in the further explanation. So let's collapse this, collapse the next part also, and collapse the next part also, and see how it works. It looks a little bit scary for new people to understand depending upon how the index works and how things are working. But if you understand it once, it will be very easy for you. So just focus on what I'm trying to explain right now. So let's move forward. It says A bank columns layout. Inside that, we are having a definition of columns. Now the columns are actually looping on local bank milestone bar steps. What are milestone bar steps? Milestone bar steps are the list of those text strings which are actually the pieces of different milestone stages. If you see that we are having first, second, third, fourth, it can have more than one. If I copy it and if I provide you more than one stage, let's see. Now here you can see we are having additional step. So you can completely rename them and the logic will work as expected because the implementation is the core implementation of how the milestone will move and how the steps will move ahead and you know how the step will be selected depending upon the selection of the milestone current milestone bar step. It is written here actually. So let's see. So for each item in local bank milestone bar steps, that is, let's assume for the first time it will render the first piece, right? For each item in current local bank milestone bar steps. So let's suppose we are having at the first index, right? So here the index will be 1 and we are at local bank milestone bar steps. The index will be 1. We will go inside the code. Now in the expression, the entire code will be executed. The entire code will be executed for the current list item, correct? Now it says that if FP bank index is less than current milestone bar step, then do this. If FP bank, now the next condition, else. You know the if else condition, it is quite simple, right? We are having if condition. If we start with it, we put a condition. If it is true, then do this, else do this. It is very, very simple. So the first condition that we are checking is if FP bank index, that means the first time the loop will run, the index will be 1. So the first item will be picked and based upon that, the index will be 1. If 1 is less than 1, then do this. Else, go inside the next condition. I repeat, for the first time, the loop index will be 1. If 1 is less than 1, then do this, else do this. Now 1 is not less than 1, 1 is equals to 1. So this condition will not be true. If it is not true, so this will be lapsed and line number 65 block of code will be executed. So again, inside the line number 65, we are having additional set of condition. Here, what we are having, if again another if condition, if FP bank index is greater than current milestone bar step, then execute this piece of code, else go to the last condition. So now again the question for you is FP bank index greater than current milestone bar step? Is 1 greater than 1? No. That means this condition will be false. And if this if condition is false, then this code will not be executed because this code gets executed only when the condition is true. Now what will happen? We will directly go to the else condition. We followed all the followed the nested if condition and we went to the last condition, that is the else case for the nested if. Why? Because the index is 1 and the first item is already picked. Based upon the index, we are comparing it with the current milestone bar step, and depending upon that, we are executing the code. So in our case, currently 1 is not less than 1, 1 is not greater than 1. So that means the last step will be executed, that is current step. So for current step, we will have the understanding of what is written inside the code. Let's see, we are having a column layout. That means inside the columns layout, we are defining a column layout now. So as I told you in the previous lecture, which I have already explained you, if you check my playlist, columns layout is very easy to understand. Columns layout means you are having an ability to define n number of columns. Now inside that you have defined based upon the condition, you are defining a specific column. Now I have defined a column layout. Inside that we are having contents. Let's collapse that and understand. Column layout is quite simple, right? We are having column layout and if you see here inside we are having columns layout. Inside that we are rendering this column layout and then inside that we are rendering it a card layout. So inside the card layout we are having side by side layout and we are having uh, the implementation of a side-by-side item. Now, side-by-side layout requires a side-by-side item. That is why it is defined as accordingly. So if you see that we are having an accessibility text called current step, and depending upon the condition, we are defining the what is the current step. So if we see that inside the side-by-side item, what we are having hand or right, and that is a current step. You see here, this is the hand or right, and this is only coming because the condition is satisfying the else condition depending upon your current milestones, right? And what is the another side by side item? We are doing upper means capitalize of fv bang item. So in our looping case, what is the fv bang item? The fv bang item is the first item in the list, that is gray on tech. That means we understood the index is 1, and we are rendering the gray on tech value inside the first piece of card layout which is inside the side by side layout. Concluding all the implementation, we understood that for the first time when the loop will run, the index will be 1 and the first item will be picked. Correct? Now let's change the scenario. Let's make the current milestone bar step as 2, and let's see how it will behave. Now if we test it, you can see that the previous one is ticked and it is blue, and the current one is again is having the hand arrow, and the rest all are gray. Now let's see one more time how it works. In second time when the loop will run, it will grab the second item. That is FV Bank item will be review card. Now, again, what will be the index? FV Bank index will be compared according to the loops, right? So now, is FV Bank index less than current milestone bar step? What will be the FV Bank index for us right now? Obviously, because the first time when the loop will run in the list item, so the index will be 1. When the loop will run for the second time, the index will be 2. So now is 2 less than 2? False. Again, this condition will be lapsed. Now the second condition will come. Is 2 greater than 2? False. This will not be written again. And again, the last condition will populate the second item, that is review card. So when the FVBank item will be review card, so that will be populated with the hand icon, right? Now, if we talk about first time, so when the loop will run first time for gray on tech, and the current milestone bar step is 2. When the loop will run for the first time, so FVBank item is gray on tech, FVBank index is 1. So if 1 is less than 2, correct? If 1 is less than 2, so execute this code. So what is written inside this code? So basically it is written for completed step. So here the icon will be check, that means tick, and the another side by side item will be saying that render the completed step. So basically the whole logic of this pattern is defined on the basis of the list of item that you have defined. Whatever the content you will define in the list, it will be rendering that, and the icons will only conditionally render depending upon your current milestone bar step. I hope it is clear till now. Depending upon your current milestone bar step, your milestone will actually move forward or backward, depending upon how many items are checked or how many items are unchecked. I hope it is understandable to you. Depending upon your current milestone bar step, the whole interface will revolve in terms of rendering the checked items and the unchecked items. Now the understanding the core part, how the current milestone bar step will work. So if you see, the body of the interfaces will be defined, and whatever you'll do in the project, it will be defined accordingly. Now the main thing is using the buttons. When you click the next, the button will increment the current milestone bar step, and when you click on back, it will decrement that. It is a very simple logic. If you click on next, that means we want to go to the next milestone. We want to see the next interface that is defined in the next item in the choose one. If you click on next, 2 will increment to 3, and we will move forward, right? And the third item in the body will be rendered. When you click on next, 4 will be incremented and the fourth item in the choose function, that is the fourth interface code, will be rendered. And if you reload the interface or if you click on test, that means whatever the initial definition of the local variable is there, it will be defined and it will be rendered according to that. And whatever the current milestone bar step is, we will have the same indexed body. So with this, we got to know that usually we should keep the current milestone bar step as 1, so that whenever a user starts, if you are, see, milestones are generally used when you are having a series of steps to take care of in a process and you have to deal with everything on a stage level basis. If you see here, we are starting with the initial item, that is the initial step defined here. Now you click on next, you are moving to the next step, and the second body of the interface is being rendered. When you click on next, the milestone step is increasing incrementally and the body is also rendering accordingly. If the user clicks on back, depending upon the conditions, the icons are being changed and the implementation is done accordingly. I hope you are able to understand what I'm trying to explain here. Now, the next thing, let's go back to the button code. Here, what we will see, if you see the next button, you expand the next button, it is just calculating the current milestone bar step and it is just checking what is the length of the milestone bar steps. That means if the length of the milestone bar steps is 5, because there are 5 items, so it will check if 5 is equals to 5, then submit, else next. Very simple. So next will appear till you are having the last item. If you click next, you click next, if you click next, it will appear till next. Although the implementation we have to see that we are defining in the choose function. So it will appear till last. The submit will appear. One second. 1, 2, 3, 4. The error came because we are having only 4 items in the choose function and we have clicked on the fifth item. So if we do it now, let's see. Here you can see the submit button appeared and the fifth body appeared. Basically, what the buttons are doing, it is just checking the length of how many milestone bar steps you have defined. Based upon that, next will appear till you are not arrived at the last milestone. Else, if you are already there at the last milestone, the next button will be converted into submit. Similarly, save into is happening. What save into is happening? If the current step is the last step, that means you are at the end. If you are at the last step, then don't save anything. No matter how much you click, don't save anything. Technically, it will be actually saving some things or a process might start depending upon your implementation. Right now, it is empty in the pattern, right? So here you can see we are having an A bank save. In this A bank save, what we are having, we are having simple implementation. Whatever is your current milestone bar step, we are incrementing it by 1. That is because we are whatever you are doing next, you are incrementing it one by one. One just like we are having x equals to x plus plus, we are incrementing it by 1. And if you see the same implementation in the back button, here again in the above button array layout, here you can see we are just checking the cancel will only appear when you are at the first step, and back button will appear only when the current milestone bar step is greater than 1. So right now you are at the initial page, right? So that is why back button is not visible. The moment you move ahead by clicking on next button and you make it more than 1, so the back button will appear. Now how does back button works? The back button works in simple way. So it just decrements the current milestone bar step. One, if you click it once, it will decrement it by 1, and it will only be visible till the current milestone bar step is not the initial milestone bar step. That means it is greater than 1. Now, if 2 is greater than 1, then only the back button will appear. If I click it one time and add decrement and make it 1, 1 is not greater than 1. That is why it is not appearing. It is a very simple mathematical conditions to understand the interface. Now, I hope you understand the implementation of how the body is being rendered depending upon the current milestone bar step, how to define your own list, and how to customize the next button, back button. In my recommendation, there was no need to, put separate button array layouts in the pattern. I think one button layout or a single button array layout would be sufficient to do this implementation. Second thing, instead of putting a list of the code, what we can do is we can put the rule bank style interfaces. This will make your code more modularized and it will be helpful for other developers to understand if you're working in a team. I hope you understand the implementation of choose function and how the entire choose function is being rendering is actually rendering the pieces of code depending upon the key item, that is the current milestone bar step in our case. The current implementation of how, which icon will be changing, what will be the item that will be highlighted with the blue color, how it works. I hope you understood now. Depending upon the selected, here you can define your own colors, you can do your own styling. You can utilize this pattern, you can define your own colors and styling, you can utilize the conditions. This is a basic and standard milestone implementation. If you really like my explanation, see, everything is already defined in Appian. I try to make it more simpler and make it more easy for you. If you really like my explanation, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment. This is a really big fuel of motivation for me, and keep watching this channel for further tutorials. Thank you.